Today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks for success in Composition 1 and 2, as well as the specific instructions for Essay 1. First and foremost, the basic things that you need to remember when writing a paper, at least for me, is to always use proper academic American English. Don't use British spellings of words. Um, don't say gonna, wanna, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Say going to, want to, should have, would have, could have. These are things that make your writing more correct and more legible. Pay attention to mechanics. Watch your grammar, your spelling, your capitalization, your punctuation. You want to make sure that you avoid words and phrases that are abbreviations, slang, vernacular, or colloquialisms. Um, when using time bound phrasing, be specific. Don't use things like nowadays or back in the day or back then. When is nowadays? When is back then? You need to be specific. In the 70s or, um, you know, in the current era or, since 1983, be specific as possible. On that same note of avoiding words and phrases that you shouldn't use, in our course on Blackboard under the resources and reference documents, there is the word graveyard. There's a list of words there that you want to review. Do not use those in your papers. If those words appear in your papers, they will result in automatic point deductions. So please make sure you review that chart as well. You also want to watch out for tense changes. This is particularly difficult when you're writing your personal narrative because often the events you're describing feel very current and personal and real to you, and you try to write in present tense, but it happened in the past, and so you'll slip into past tense halfway between. A good rule of thumb is that if you are writing about something that happened in the past, put it in past tense. Make sure that you remember everything as though it happened in the past because it did. Don't try to write it as present tense. It just gets confusing and it gets lost often. You also want to watch out for run on sentences and fragment sentences. Now, when someone is speaking, inside their quotation marks when they're speaking, you may be able to see um, fragment sentences or run on sentences because that's the way people speak. But in the actual body of the paper, when it's not someone's speech, please be very proper and academic with your speech. Don't use contractions in a formal paper. Do not instead of don't is correct. Do not refer to yourself unless otherwise directed to do so. Remember that your papers are not about you. The only exception to that in this class is this first paper, which is a personal narrative. So, on your first paper, yes, write about yourself, your feelings, your emotions, your experiences. But on other papers that we do, it's not about you. Don't say, I think, I believe, I feel. Tell me your opinion as if it is a fact. Don't say, I think that Muhammad Ali is the greatest boxer who ever lived. Simply say, Muhammad Ali is the greatest boxer who ever lived. And then your research and quotes will back up that opinion. You state your opinions as if it's fact, and you leave yourself out of it. When referring to an author, always use their first and last name the first time you talk about them, and then for the rest of the paper, you only use their last name. You also don't use honorifics. If you're speaking about Stephen King, you don't say Mr. King, you just say King. If you're speaking about J.K. Rowling, you don't say Miss Rowling, you just say Rowling. You always cite your sources, even if you didn't directly quote them. Paraphrased material can still be plagiarized, so you have to cite your sources. One of the things that I see often is students think that they have to construct sentences in this way. In the story, it says that. You don't have to put it that way. Just say, the story says, for example, in The Fault in Our Stars, the author explains blah, 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 blah. Simply just say, The Fault in Our Stars explains blah, 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 blah. It's just a cleaner and neater way to say things. Also, don't narrate yourself. Don't use signal phrases or tell me what you're going to do. Just do the thing. Don't say, in this paper, I will, or this quote means that. Don't draw attention to the fact that you're writing a paper. Don't narrate. Just do it. Just explain the quote without saying this quote means that. Don't just do what you're going to do in the paper without saying in this paper I will. It's also incorrect to start sentences with the word while or being or doing. I see this a lot in the past few semesters, writings from students where they'll say things like, she did her grocery shopping while singing along to her favorite playlist, and they'll make it a separate sentence. If you're going to use while, it needs to be the beginning of the sentence. While singing along to her favorite playlist, she did her grocery shopping. And it needs to have a comma and be integrated and included. If you're not sure and you can't get this straight, don't use the word while to start a sentence. Don't use being or doing to start a sentence. Okay. Also, watch out for your pronoun references. Don't use unclear pronoun references. Don't say they say if you don't know who they are. Avoid having two male or two female pronouns in the same sentence. For example, he was watching him is confusing. Give one of them a name or an identifier, such as he was watching the younger man or he was watching the redhead. Things like that to help differentiate who your characters are. Um, One of the things that's very, very nitpicky, but it makes your writing sound much more professional, is remembering that people are always who and never that. So instead of saying the girls that study do well in this course, you would say the girls who study do well in this course. Always remember to write a paper as if the reader has no idea what you're writing about. They have not read the prompt, they've not read any articles or stories that were provided to you. You have to introduce everything and explain everything as if the person just found your paper on the ground and decided to read it and needs to understand it. And when you're in doubt about anything at all, always ask your professor. I would rather field 100 emails answering questions than have you lose points on a graded assignment because you just guessed. Plus, if I get the same question over and over and over again, it helps me know that I need to address that issue more specifically so that others won't have that question in the future. So you asking questions helps me. Make sure you do that. The next thing we're going to talk about is Essay 1, the personal narrative. This is the only chance in this course that you're going to have to write about yourself and your own experiences. But there are some caveats here. I don't want you to just write me the story of what you did last Thursday. Okay, there's some things you need to focus on. This is a little bit long in the explanation, but I want to make sure that you understand, so bear with me. In an essay of no less than 500 and no more than 750 words, this does not include your header information, the 4 information lines, the title, works cited when we have a works cited, which this paper won't. It doesn't include any of that. Okay, just the actual body of the paper from the first word to the last needs to be between 500 and 750 words. Write a narrative in which you focus on a single positive moment that changed your world or had a profound impact on your life. Keep the time frame hyper-focused, occurring in no more than a 24-hour period, though some flashback to help explain things is okay. But don't go over the maximum word count. The shorter the moment of focus, the more impactful your essay will be. So in other words, don't tell me about the summer you went to summer camp when you were 10. Tell me about the day you got stung by the bee when you were playing hide and seek at summer camp when you were 10. Okay, hyper focus on a specific moment. For the content of your essay, it needs to be something positive, something unusual, something that centers about you. Be creative, but mind the word count. Do not write about a birth or a death. I've had enough of my own in my world and I don't need to read yours. Do not write about your involvement in or belief of any political upheaval or movement. This is not the place for protests. We are going positive here. I don't want to hear about your involvement in any of the stuff that has gone on so far this summer. This is not the place for that. Do not write about surviving natural disasters. I have read so many stories about Hurricane Harvey that I am very, very sick of it. And I know that it was a profound thing for people, and I know that it changed everyone's world. But we're trying to focus on the happy and the positive and the good in life. Often, too, those things are just huge. They take too much space. You can't effectively tell that story in 500 words. Okay. Please also avoid graphic depictions of illness or injury. That's gross. It's often too large to condense. I once had a student who wrote me about the time that they got gangrene in their toe and had to have it amputated. And frankly, I don't ever want to read that again. Thank you. Don't overthink it. The point here is to find something that is good and something that might be a mundane, I'm just making dinner with my family, that somehow had a larger effect or had a larger impact on your life. Um, Something more than what you expect. Tell a good story. Stay with lighter themes. Focus on good memories or funny moments. And remember to paint a picture with your words. Focus on details so that your reader gets a visual image of what you're describing. Give your paper an interesting title. Don't call it Essay 1. Don't call it narrative. Don't call it My Story. Your title should have something to do with what you're writing about, and it should grab your reader's attention. If they were looking through a table of contents of all of the titles of these essays, what would make them want to read yours over the one next to it? Your final draft on this paper has to be in MLA style. If you don't know how to do that, look in the Writing Strategies and Guides folder on the Resources tab because it has lots of information there of how to do it. I strongly recommend that you do not use a pre-formatted template as they often have something or other incorrect. Most notably, the one in Word for MLA compresses the font in the title in an unnecessary way and it looks funny, and yes, I can see the difference. Please do not use a template. Take the time to go through each step and learn how to format it correctly yourself. Incorrect formatting will result in automatic deductions from your grade. At the end of the body of your paper, skip a line, type word count, and give me the total number of words you have in your paper. Now, Microsoft Word has a tool to do this so that you don't have to sit and literally count the words. Just remember to not include the header, your 4 info lines, and the title of your paper. If your paper exceeds the maximum word count of 750 words, I will not keep reading beyond the 750. So if you haven't made your point yet, you may not get a good grade because the point isn't there. This paper must be turned in through Turnitin under the Submit Assignments tab, and it is due no later than 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday. I know that's a quick turnaround, but it's a personal story, so it shouldn't take you long to write, and it is due on Wednesday. Coming back into the class, if you look at our schedule, let me make sure that you are with me on that. Monday, your initial email to me stating that you understand. Your discussion board 1 with introductions is due, all on the first day of class. By Wednesday, you need to have reviewed the plagiarism information, done discussion board 2 about driving story, and turned in your first essay. On Thursday or Friday, I will post some additional information about what's coming up for the following week. The integrating quotations assignment is due on Friday. That is in this Unit 1 folder. And then we will go from there. As always, if you have any questions, always email or text me and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Don't forget that all emails must have the proper subject line in order to get answered quickly. Thanks so much. Have a great day.